Thank you very much for having me, and thanks to Pat Hines and the entire staff, especially the crew hiding back there in the back row who make this possible every year. It's really a fantastic opportunity to come. Although, a personal note, I kind of dread it every year because when Pat calls me, I haven't yet moved to Las Cruces, and I always still have to fly in for this conference rather than just driving down the road. So hopefully next year, although I think I said that last year, I can do that next time. So that's that. And actually, since I've been here last year, we've made a few changes in Virgin Galactic's structure under Richard Branson's companies. And we officially spinned off the Launcher One team into their own standalone company, Virgin Orbit. So even though I'm here to talk about Virgin Galactic, I'm actually going to first talk about Virgin Orbit. So they're a small satellite launch company based down in Long Beach. They're building a two-stage LOX RP-1 rocket. And basically, air-launched from a 747 with the aim to serve that small satellite market, the 300 kilograms up to about a 500-kilometer sun-synchronous orbit. So they do all their propulsion testing up in Mojave, where we're located, so the facilities are there. And it's all in-house. They build these and develop them and manufacture them in Long Beach, and they test them up in Mojave. So a single engine on the first stage called Newton 4. It's got about 75,000 pounds of thrust. A single engine on the second stage called Newton, the first one's Newton 3, second stage is Newton 4, that's got about 5,000 pounds of thrust. And they're both turbopump powered, so you can imagine Newton 4 with 5,000 pounds of thrust, but a turbopump on it, it's a cute little package, if you can call a rocket motor cute. They do all their manufacturing down in Long Beach, and all that done is, again, in-house, so propellant tanks, propulsion systems, avionics, and structures. This is their Pathfinder rocket. And it's basically getting ready for flight testing. It's the structural test article that'll fly on Cosmic Girl. And speaking of Cosmic Girl, there's the 747. It's a purpose-built design, so the fifth pylon mount, there's a provision on a 747 to carry a fifth engine. So that is out there on the wing, and that's where the rocket will be mounted. They go up to about 35,000 feet, do a zoom pull-up maneuver, and drop the rocket. So that's actually on track. Their schedules still show those test flights starting soon, and they're aiming to have their first operational launch, although a test flight in the summertime of next year. So that gives us now 3 companies under the Virgin umbrella. And so to help explain that a little bit more, I stole a video that we just made for Richard Branson, so I get to preview it about an hour before he does. So hopefully he's not tuned in and watching. And we'll roll the video here to kind of explain Virgin Space.
The exploration of space will go ahead, and it is one of the great adventures of all time.
Humans have managed to learn so much about the universe in such a relatively small time frame compared with the life of the universe. That was always very incredible to me.
I think that I and most of the people in this team choose to be in space because you're part of something that is changing the way humans look at the world, the way we relate to each other, the way we live.
We have an opportunity here to do aerospace better, and we're doing it on a landmark program that's going to change the world.
By bringing hundreds and eventually thousands of people into space, they'll get a different perspective on life and on our future, and that over time, that will have a profound impact on how humanity faces its toughest problems.
Together, we can make space accessible in a way that has only been dreamt of before now. And by doing that, we can truly bring positive change to life on Earth.
Have you ever thought about going into space, Richard? I'd love to go into space. I think there could be nothing nicer. So if you're building a spacecraft, I'd love to come with you.
All right, and then this actually is a picture from yesterday morning. As you know, the Space Council kicked off, and we actually had the honor of hosting Vice President Mike Pence out in Mojave yesterday. On Tuesday. And we brought the carrier aircraft as well as our Virgin ship, Mothership Eve out. And so a great shot. So I took this right before I hopped on the plane. Unfortunately, I didn't hop on either of those planes to fly here. But maybe next year I'll fly in on one of those. So that'd be great. So let me turn back to Virgin Galactic and the spaceship company. But I was going to use the theme of ISPCS this year, the Go for Purpose, to kind of focus that talk a little bit. Because that's a really interesting question, right? Go for purpose. Well, you better start by knowing what your purpose is. So our vision comes from our founder, right? Richard Branson. Everybody kind of pretty much knows that he's well known for that sense of challenging business as usual and looking to deliver a better experience than what exists. And so currently, government-driven spaceflight is really not going to be the change that allows hundreds or thousands of people to make it into space. So the commercial industry is going to do that, and he created Virgin Galactic to do just that. It really helps that he's also a pretty enthusiastic space nut, and so that always is good when your boss likes what you do. So at Virgin Galactic, we articulate our purpose with this, that together we open space to change the world for good. And I really like to focus on the together part. I talked about it last year a little bit, and just to say a little more, right? Together to me is our team, right? It's all the employees. Virgin and Richard have a culture of delivering excellent customer service, and to do that you need excellent people. And so you take care of your team, you treat them well, and they'll deliver you a good product. It also is all of Virgin Space, the three companies, Virgin Orbit, TSC, and Virgin Galactic. We're currently working on some separate projects, but we're going to come together in the future for the next big thing. All those technologies really are what we need to keep exploring space. And then it's all of us in this room. It's the space industry, right? Everybody is doing very hard and challenging things, and advancing the human presence in space is something that needs all of us, and it needs all of us to succeed, so that we can do it together. So that brings us to our other purpose, right? So right now, up in Space Station is Expedition 53, and they've up there representing what we're coming up on 17 years of continuous manned presence in space on the International Space Station. The recent launch, Mark Vande Hei over there on the right, is a first-time flyer up on station right now. That's a great thing. The bad thing is he's only the 560th person to fly to space. A lot more people have gone, but they've been repeat flyers, so only 560 individual souls have been to space. So Virgin Galactic, we aim to change that, obviously. Right? We have over 700 customers signed up and ready to go. We expect that number to go skyrocketing as soon as we start flying that first group through. We also want to do this for our science and payload missions, right? Not just people, we want to change the world for science research. So we can offer payload racks instead of seats, and a nice landing back on the runway where you've taken off from, and quick access to your data. So that's who we're going with. Now, why are we going, right? This is the view that Brian Binney took from Spaceship One when it won the X Prize. And it kind of illustrates why we go, right? It's the adventure, the thrill, the view, the weightlessness. All of those things are really good reasons to go. For me, though, I think I still focus on a little more of the philosophical, right? To me, it's that exposure and access of hundreds of people to the overview effect that the astronauts get, right? The chance to see the Earth from above, to see a world without borders, to recognize the fragility of the Earth and the environment. I think you'll come back and you'll make that part of your everyday life. And the more people we can have make that part of their life and realize they can do that, the more that'll start to change the fabric of our civilization, where we really realize that space is where we belong and it is where we will go. And it's not just this thing that someday may happen. So our purpose is also kind of defined by our partnerships, right? We have a very strong partnership with the Office of Commercial Space Transportation, right? And I'm not just playing up because I know Dr. Neild's going next, although maybe I might be doing that a little bit since we have a license modification in work right now. But it's really been a great help, right? They are really taking that charter to innovate and encourage and promote the industry to heart. And they've been a fantastic partner, not just for us, but I know for others in the room as well. We also have deep roots with a partnership with Spaceport America. And you just heard from Dan Hicks, a really great vision of how he wants to advance the spaceport. And he has our unwavering support to make that vision come true. So thanks, Dan. And it was not me that asked about the Southern Road. I kind of like doing the little hot dogging down the dirt road. So our community is also our purpose, right? We're not just here to fly rockets to space. We're here to help change life on Earth, right? We want to be as involved on the ground as we are in space. In partnership with Virgin Galactic, our customers of future astronauts actually have helped us form Galactic Unite. And it's a nonprofit that helps sponsor not only scholarships in STEM education around the globe, but does outreach to high schools, to elementary schools, and universities. We've actually, here in New Mexico, been doing hundreds of outreaches. Last year, we managed to have a classroom chat with every 6th grader in every surrounding county around Spaceport America. And next year, we want to expand that to be the entire state of New Mexico. So let's talk about our product, right? Spaceship 2 and White Knight 2. We're building a suborbital space transportation, and that's really our purpose, right? Suborbital space transportation. It's defined by our heritage, right? The X-15 are some of the roots of that air-launched suborbital space exploration. And we share a lot of the same features. Burt Rutan, in part, developed the feather system that we use for entry due to one of the accidents in the X-15 program on Flight 191 with Mike Adams. We're also born of Burt, right? So Spaceship 1 heritage. This is Brian Binney after we won the X Prize. Basically, you can't deny those roots that come from the first activity in really the commercial human space transportation industry. And I'll take a moment to say, actually, sadly, we're also grounded in the accident of that program, right? So the first spaceship claimed the life of scaled pilot Mike Ellsbury, and it's been 3 years ago this month. And so our heritage makes sure we apply those really hard-fought lessons learned to make sure we honor his memory in everything we do in the future. So all of those things define our purpose, and it's why we're doing what we're doing. And I know you probably now want to hear, what have we been doing? So let's switch gears, and I'll give you a little bit of update on where we stand in the flight test program. So we're in the middle of glide flights with VSS Unity out at the Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. So after the vehicles are mated, we take off. It takes about 50 minutes, and we climb up to 50,000 feet. From there, we'll release Spaceship 2. Now, there's no rocket motor on board for these glide flights, but you can see in the back, that's a water ballast tank, so we can carry the weight of a rocket motor, but we can dump it overboard in case the handling qualities aren't quite what we liked, right? So a little better for flight testing. We've been doing that for a while now, and checking out basically how everything performs subsonically. We're looking at structural performance, flutter characteristics, handling qualities, flight qualities, and control authority of all the aero surfaces. We've also been testing the feather system. Now, we don't normally deploy the feather when we're in the atmosphere. In a space flight, the feather would be deployed once we're in space. But in the atmosphere, it lets us test it. It's kind of a stress test for us. It's a little higher load than normal, but it really lets us evaluate what is a very key system for us and make sure it's functioning fine before we go into rocket-powered flight. And then obviously, if you're flying, you have to land. So we evaluate how the ship performs in approach and land, given that we're an unpowered glider and we've really got just one shot at landing. So what have we learned so far? Unity's been actually performing really well, almost exactly as the models have been predicted. In fact, it turns out it's our models that are a little off, not the ship, so that's always good. Of course, I think the engineers like to say that so that they can prove that they built a good system. We had some problems initially when we started our captive carry flights about a year ago. We had some components that were getting really cold up at 50,000 feet, and so differential thermal expansion caused some really tight tolerances. But we were able to fix that pretty quickly with some material changes and some tolerance changes, so we worked through that very fast. We've determined the feather actually deploys a lot smoother than it did on Enterprise, the first spaceship. We attribute that to the fact that we've got a lot better instrumentation now, and we're able to load balance the actuators. There are two redundant actuators, and if you don't have them balanced quite right, they kind of fight with each other. So we've been able to fine-tune that a little bit, and we have a much smoother feather deployment. That was a surprising fact for us. We haven't seen any flutter issues. We haven't seen any structural issues. And so, knock on wood, right, I'll say our glide flight program has been amazingly successful so far, and things are right on track where they need to be. Now, things are naturally never going as fast as you want them to be, but we're in the middle right now of basically switching over from the configurations for glide flight into the configurations for powered flight. But while we've been testing our spaceship, we're actually busy building our fleet. So you can see in this picture, those are cabin halves, 2 additional cabin halves being made for our next 2 spaceships. The cabin shells are fabricated, the systems are going in, and the cabin halves have been bonded together. And so the skeletons of our next 2 spaceships are well underway. Next up is to start assembling the wings and the fuselages and then bring those parts together. Now this is going to take a year to a year and a half for both these vehicles to come online, but it's a really good testament to the strength and commitment of Virgin Group and Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic that we're not only testing one vehicle but building 2 more as we go. We really do want a fleet of spacecraft. We're putting the final touches on our propulsion system, and basically we build a new test stand. The one on the right fires vertically down. So the other 2 we have for testing and ignition at our start, right? We launch and then we light the motor horizontally before we turn on our tail. So the stand on the right lets us take a look at the burnout conditions that the motor sees and fine-tune some of the weight reduction that we're looking for in that motor. And I'm talking a little too long, so I'll have to skip the propulsion video, which hurts me as a propulsion guy, but I'll skip that video. So we'll skip right past that one and go right to powered flight testing. So pretty soon, we'll be evaluating supersonic boost, how we handle exo-atmospheric when we use the RCS system to control our attitude, and then supersonic reentry. So the feather will go up, we go Mach 3 straight up, but then that speed bleeds to 0, and we go supersonic on the way back down again. So that's a profile we haven't flown yet. The testing, the CFDs, and the wind tunnel all tell us that's going to be fine, but it is one of those unknowns in front of us that we're really anxious to start flight testing. Then we finally get to what I and a lot of others have been waiting for, relocating down here to Spaceport America, and the start of commercial spaceline. So to wrap things up, I have one more video, and it kind of recaps Spaceship Unity's journey so far, and then I'll be able to take some questions at the end. All right, thank you everybody for your time today.
Thanks, Mike, for that update. It's great to see all the progress that you guys are up to. Let's get into some of the questions.
Sure, yeah.
When are we going to space? I know Richard Branson mentioned earlier this week in Helsinki, you aim to be flying in 3 months, and he'll be up there flying in 6 months. How do we feel about that?
Well, Richard always poses a challenge. He likes to push us pretty hard. Sometimes I wish he wouldn't talk so much. 3 months is about right? We hope to be in space by the end of this year. He's a little further away than that, right? So you need to make sure the product's really working well. We're going to do the powered program just like we do the glide program, right? It's a requirements-based. Each step we need to measure a few more things, evaluate how we're able to predict the next step. You know, the first thing you want to do is kind of predict what you're going to see, fly it, make sure you got what you thought, so that you know your prediction for the step after that is right. So we'll take our time with it. I think you guys kind of espouse the same exact philosophy.
I get it.
We're going to fly when we're ready, right? So.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. So given that, it's difficult with timelines that keep shifting. How have you, what do ticket sales look like? Are you continuing to grow them? Has there been a little bit of a steady state while you guys are developing your program?
Yeah, so actually 3 years ago, we took an active step to basically stop active ticket sales. So we kind of froze where we were. We're right on the 700-person mark. That was enough to demonstrate the market, right? Our investors knew that that was a solid business case for us, but it didn't really make sense until we had the timeline back of when we start service to keep building a backlog of passengers, right? So we kind of froze for a little while. We pick up 1s and 2s here and there. We just had a big camping event up in Idaho to watch the eclipse, brought all our future astronauts. About half their spouses also signed up. So we sell a few here and there, but that's not really our focus right now. It's getting the flight program going, and then we'll pick back up again.
Sounds good. Also have heard that there might have been a bump in the price. Are we still sticking at $250? Or
yep, $250 is where we're at right now. We're talking about, you know, there's a lot of other interest in this product, right? It's not just the ride to space. You know, one of the things we're selling is the experience, right? It's not just the ride. It's a chance to come, train, be part of the crew, feel like what a crew member would go through. And so there's been interest in those activities. And so we're looking at maybe offering a slightly expanded product in addition to just the space flight itself.
So the audience is wondering out there, obviously right now, those with $250,000 in dispensable income, there's still of a certain class of people. How is Virgin looking to, let's say, open it up to others with maybe not that level of dispensable income?
The fleet is the key, right? So by having multiple ships, we can fly multiple times. It drops our overhead. And that really lets us open the market up and drive those prices down, right? So from a business perspective, supply and demand, I think we'll always have way more of a supply than we have an ability to fly, but that's a great market to be in. But yeah, eventually we do want to be driving those prices down. Again, the real vision is to democratize access to space, and the price point is a part of that, right? We need to get those price points down. We have, space is expensive. You got to do what you need to do, but I think we'll drive them down.
So in talking about opening up the market and democratizing it, if you will, it's not just an American thing. I think we both agree we'd like to make it international. Can you update the audience here on what you all are doing in terms of your international operations and some of your partnerships there?
Yeah, so we have future astronauts from over 58 countries around the world. So that's a great step into that international market. We've been talking to lots of folks. The UK Space Agency is really looking to set up spaceflight operations, orbital and suborbital. We've been in talks with them. The Italian Space Agency, the UAE has created a space agency. Like Dan showed the map, a couple spaceports suddenly grew into lots. If you take them around the world, there's a whole bunch cropping up as well. Those are all good visions and targets, and we've got some business development work happening there. But again, our main focus right now is here in New Mexico on Spaceport America and getting the main operations up and running. And then I talked a little bit about Virgin Orbit, right? And they're going to also be looking to be air-launched, right? You can be based wherever you really need to be and fly where you want to launch from. And those operations kind of can come together again. And so a lot of foreign entities are looking at those two things as a package that maybe offers an access to space, both from a personal standpoint as well as a satellite standpoint.
Wonderful. We have some questions here about the vehicle itself. So, for example, will Unity be able to make it over the Kármán line from initial flights?
Yeah, so Unity was originally being built to be light enough to do that, but after the accident, we had to go add a lot of weight, right? So we didn't finish the test program. So now Unity is our test vehicle. So we've added a lot more structure, a lot more instrumentation, because you don't know the margins, you don't know the actual environment you're going to fly in. We had to be on the conservative side. We'll be able to pull that weight back out after we've done it, but initially we won't be going all the way to the Kármán line, but we're going to aim for the 80-kilometer definition, U.S. definition of space.
So along those lines, can you expand a little bit more on what are some other differences between Enterprise and Unity and some of the changes you've made?
Yeah, the biggest difference for us is in the human control factors, right? The accident showed us that was the real focus, was a failure to really anticipate the ways that the ship should be able to stop the human from making an error. So we've added a lot more control capability there. We've added a lot more features specifically around the feather system, but we didn't stop there. We did an end-to-end review of the entire system, White Knight, as well as our ground operations and our propulsion systems as well. And we've made some good changes. And then looking to the future, the next two vehicles are being built, Tails 3 and 4, and they have some changes as well. We're looking at a lot of system upgrade capability, moving to digital systems, a lot more, again, pilot management techniques and tools that will roll into those next vehicles.
So getting back to the experience for your customers, what are you planning on doing for the rest of the experience? You talked about the camping to see the eclipse.
Yep.
How are you going to take care of them out here in the desert?
Yeah, so right now the program is set up to basically be a 4-day visit, right? So you'll come into New Mexico, come out to Spaceport America. Your first day kind of familiarizes yourself with our vehicles, the flight profile, and yourself, right? What are you personally going to experience when you fly? The zero-G environment, the high-G environment, a boost. Day 2 gets you to know the detailed systems, the comm gear, the seat, the restraint systems, and work through the mission profiles that you're going to see. And then day 3 is kind of a relaxing day. We basically do a dress rehearsal like you would do on any launch, right? So we'll strap in the real vehicle, practice all the things. Again, the idea to remove anything that would surprise you on the real day, right? So that you feel prepared and ready to go. And then the morning of day 4, you go fly. Now, hopefully the weather holds and we don't have to make that day 5 or 6. We're not in Florida like I used to be on the shuttle program, so hopefully that should be a lot easier to do. Dan's promised me lots of sunshine, right?
340 days, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, so that's a little bit on on the experience itself. What about the training? What sort of things are you building into your program to make sure that your passengers are ready to fly both physically, let's say, and mentally?
Yeah, so that's actually a good aspect, right? The psychological side of things as well. And a lot of the training we're going to do is not so much to make sure you know it, but it's a chance to work through it so you don't get nervous about it, right? The worst scenario would be that you go strap in and then you get those first jump jitters, right? And you don't want to go. So the program's really set up to kind of work through that. One thing that you could say it's an advantage, you could say it's a disadvantage of having to wait so long and have our customers waiting. A lot of them have gotten to know us very well, and we've gotten to know them very well. We've got our flight docs with us in the audience. They've talked to a lot of these folks. We know their conditions. We know their risks and their hazards. So the group of the first 100, we call them our founders. We know them very well. And so that'll be a really good chance for us to learn those risks there. But both medically, psychologically, and experience, right? Again, we're a Virgin company. The customer takeaway has to be the heart of what we do. Yeah.
Along those lines, safety, redundancy, what sort of life system support upgrades have been made to Unity?
We actually haven't had to do too much with the life support systems. Those were dual redundant systems to begin with. We've tested them a little more. We've made some tweaks to the temperature controls in the test program. In the scaled program, they didn't care a whole lot about the pilot's comfort, so we gave our guys a temperature knob so they can be a little warmer than they were in the old program. But no, from a customer perspective, we haven't had to do too much. But we are getting ready for that phase, right? Powered flight not only is the testing of the vehicle, but it's the testing of our passenger systems, right? The things in the back, the seats, the equipment, the operations that go with that, the boarding procedures, and that whole customer experience.
You can put some Virgin employees on first to test out the system?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Is that a raffle, or are you accepting bribes? How's that work internally?
Yeah, so I tried not to talk about that one at all.
Okay. So once you start flying, what kind of rate are you looking at? You guys going to ramp it up? You're going to just have at it? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so the vehicle's design, the design point, right, is to be able to change out the hybrid rocket motor. Takes about a half a day to change the motor. Takes about a half a day to mate back up to White Knight 2. You need to check the ship, and you could turn around. So by design, we could fly every 2 or 3 days, but that's not the right place to start, right?
With the same craft?
Same ship, yeah.
Are you going to have a fleet ready to go from day one?
So the same ship can turn around in about 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
So a fleet would let you fly on multiple days, but it's
Right.
different ships, right? So that's the pace that's achievable. Now, we're not going to start there, right? So once a month, twice a month, once a week, we're going to work our way towards those goals. I learned my lessons well in shuttle, right? You don't declare something operational. You keep it a test vehicle even though it is operating, and we're going to do that as well, and we're going to not let the pace of the business model drive our pace of flight operations. But one of the big advantages now that we brought all this in-house at Virgin Galactic is that we're learning all these things in the test program, so there's not this handover that was going to have to happen 3 or 4 years ago. And so we'll be able to pick up commercially at the pace we are in test. So one of the things in test as well is you switch from development test to operational test, where you drill those procedures and you drill those ground crews on those pacings. And so that's when we're going to push to demonstrate that we can turn around and fly once a week. So.
That will be absolutely exciting.
Thanks.
Mike, thank you so much. We're really looking
Appreciate
forward
it.
to your success.
Thanks.
Thank you.